So one question I'm sure a lot of people are asking, and I kind of brought it up during the recap that I did on the interview, is how is this going to affect AEW? And honestly, it's like I said at the end, and I firmly believe this. If I'm Tony Khan, I am, sweating bullets right now. And I'm not trying to say this as being discouragement or being discourageable or anything like that. I think Tony Khan though has to be reasonable and realize that the reason CM Punk or the reason he gave CM Punk Collision was because David Zaslav valued CM Punk. He wanted CM Punk there, and hearing CM Punk's side of the story about what happened in All In, as well as some other factors before and after, um, and not really getting a straight answer from someone like Tony Khan or anybody within the company, obviously that's going to play that possibly could play a major factor in AEW's chances of staying on TBS and TNT. Now, I'm not saying that David Zaslav and WBD, as a result of this interview with Ariel Hawani and what CM Punk had to say, I'm not saying that they're gonna be. I'm not saying they're gonna throw AEW off the air. No, but I think what's gonna happen is AEW is gonna end up on True TV. Now, True TV is supposedly going to become more sports entertainment oriented. Basically, they're going to be like the new TBS TNT of the next several years. But where Dynamite and Collision and Rampage to an extent land there is up to them. Do they remain on Wednesday nights for Dynamite? Do they remain on Saturdays for Collision? Do they remain on Fridays for Rampage? Who knows? But if I'm Tony Khan, and again, I'm not trying to be discouraging. I think having AEW around, having it on the having it on the WBD networks like TBS and TNT, I think having them around is a great thing. It's a great alternative. And obviously, you could see that those behind the scenes at AEW, like some of the new hirees, like that one girl that's part of creative and content, and it's kind of like the VP of content creation. You can tell that she and others are taking pages, whether you want to admit it or not. They're taking pages from WWE's playbook and what they're doing now with their new production, on how they produce things and have camera shots and everything. They're taking a page, from that and implementing it into their programming. Because when you look at some of the camera shots, as of late, it does feel very similar to what WWE is doing. You also look at the presentation around the ring. Now you have the little what is it, the barricade trons, if you will. The barricade trons and the apron trons, if you will, as well as the well, I wouldn't say the ring post just yet, but still the apron trons, the barricade trons, if you will. All very similar, not identical, but similar to what WWE has done. So you can definitely tell that the new creative people, the content people, are taking their experience from from WWE and elsewhere, and they're applying it to AEW. They're basically telling Tony, look, if you want to stay on TBS, you want to stay on TNT, you want to get that streaming deal, you need to be more presentation-wise, visually like WWE. Like you can be your own alternative self in ring and all that, and have a different kind of hybrid roster. But you need to have a presentation. You need to have an outlook, or not an outlook, but you have to. Well, you need to have an outlook, a presentation, if you will. It feels WWE, like to where that will attract Zaslav, that will attract potential other suitors from a cable network perspective to want to incorporate you into their programming. So yeah, you could definitely see the WWE influence, whether people want to admit that or not. But as far as his interview goes, all of that, creative influence, that they're taking from WWE and elsewhere, like I said, could be for naught. It could be absolutely for naught because, Tony Khan and his crew, they need to come out and respond to this. They need to respond to what CM Punk said about what happened at All In London. They need to respond about the other things he said. And they need to start doing it now, and not, wait long into the future. Because if they don't do it now, then Zaslav is not going to give them what they want. I mean, he might say, yeah, here's my offer to keep you on the WBD networks. But unfortunately, because you weren't truthful with us, Tony, or you went straight up with us, because he could point out that CM Punk said he quit and then say Tony said something else. And, basically he could, Zaslav and his crew could point that out to TK. And TK would have no choice to be like, okay, look, I admit I lied, and truth is CM Punk quit. I didn't fire him, he quit. So, there's that. There's, what CM Punk saying, hey, you should have just let me go, but you didn't. There's all these factors that could, be played into, where AEW lands next, later this year, if not next year. Whether they stay on TBS or TNT, that's up to many factors. And I think this interview with Ariel Helwani, to where, with a few exceptions, he did not hold anything really back. It's going to play a major factor, because this is going to reach the ears. Believe it or not, this is going to reach the ears of David Zaslav. It's going to reach the ears of those in charge of the WBD cable networks and broadcast networks, like Kathleen Finch and all them. It's going to reach their ears, and they're going to hear this, and then they're going to go back and see and be reminded of what Tony Khan said, and they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, who's telling the truth? They're gonna want some answers. And if Tony Khan wants the streaming deal, and he wants to remain on TBS and TNT, then he's gonna have to be upfront with them. He's gonna have to tell them in May, when this possibly goes down next month, hey, I had to say what I had to say to make myself look like I'm being a boss, or I had to say what I had to say to save face, because people keep calling me out saying I'm nothing but a fan. He's gonna have to do something. And if he doesn't, I'm not saying they're gonna throw them off. Like I said, what's gonna happen is they might end up on True TV, but they might end up on nights that won't benefit them. And that might be as punishment for not being truthful. I mean, there's even rumors that because they own Discovery Channel, they could end up on Discovery. And everybody has Discovery, but who would want to tune in to Discovery Channel for wrestling? When it's all been about nature and science and all that. It just would not make any sense, honestly. So if I'm Tony Khan, I start really just rethinking my strategy as the owner of this company. I start thinking to myself, okay, what new approach can I take to show I'm not a fan, to show that, hey, I'm not just a fan anymore, but I'm primarily a boss, and I'm taking this seriously. I'm not playing around anymore. I'm taking this seriously. What can I do? What approach can I take? And I think what he needs to do is take advice from those he surrounds himself with, and ask them, what is the best approach to take? What is the newest path to go down, the best path to go down, to ensure that I keep AEW, Dynamite, and Collision and Rampage on TBS and TNT, and I get that streaming deal, and everything, and prove that I've matured, and grown just like AEW's grown in the past 5+ years. What can I do? He needs to take advice from people like Bryan Danielson, from this lady he hired, from WWE. He needs to take advice from Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone. He needs to listen to them. Ian Riccaboni. He needs to listen to them. and what they have to tell him, and go from there. That would be what he needs to do, because again, Punk. Let's be honest. He went scorch earth on a lot of the AEW stuff. He didn't hold anything back that he could, that he was, that he was allowed to talk about and not held against, NDA'd, if you will. So again, if I'm Tony Khan, I take this interview very seriously. I take this interview that CM Punk had with Ariel Helwani in the MMA Hour very seriously. I start thinking to myself, what's the reaction of Zaslav and his crew, and Finch? What's the reaction going to be upon hearing what CM Punk had to say and why he initially left and everything? Was like, he's got to really, like I said, take the best approach that he feels and believes is going to salvage the company and keep them on the primary networks of TBS and TNT, with all three shows, because, nothing against True TV. True TV is a great channel, and if they're going to make that their movies and sports entertainment channel, that's fine. But the problem is not many people watch True TV. The only time they ever watch them is for like March Madness and even the MLB playoffs, and that's it. Outside of that, they don't really care. Unless it's a new show and they're hearing a lot of hype for it, they don't really care. So if I'm him and I want to keep my flagship show, my A show Dynamite, my SmackDown show, which is Collision, and my, I guess you can say, Superstars show, my NXT, my Superstars show, my main event show, if you will, Rampage, on, the two primary networks that get the most viewers, I need to start really, rearranging my planning, my strategy of how to work things, of how to operate things, and also I need to go and seek the advice of those I work with and those that have experience elsewhere. And I ask them, if I'm Tony Khan, I ask them, what is the best approach do you think I should take? What is the best path you think I should go down to show I'm a boss now, I've grown, I've matured. Yes, I'm still a fan, but now I understand I got to be a boss first, a fan second. That's the one thing, like I said, I think he needs to do. And if he does that, and he, explains truthfully, to David Zaslav, hey, I said what I did because, I was trying to save face with the roster and everything. If he tells them the truth, like, hey, I said what I said because I wanted to save face with the roster, even though I know that wasn't true, then maybe that might help him. But if I'm Tony Khan, and again, I say it with all due respect to the guy, because I want AEW to succeed. We all do. But if I'm Tony Khan, I need to really recalculate how I do things, and I need to focus on going down a different path and taking a different directive when it comes to running this company. Also, I take, my so-called maturity that I'm growing with, that I want to prove to those that basically hold the broadcast, fate of my company in their hands. I want to take something like, let's say, Ring of Honor, and I want to use it to be my developmental program for the future of AEW, and say, look, this is why you should invest in Ring of Honor. There are developmental brand for the future of our company. If I come out and say something like that to them, to try to get that maybe on True TV, instead of AEW, that might be that might be also another saving grace that will help him in the long run. But we'll have to see. But if I'm Tony Khan, and I think anybody would agree or disagree with this, is up to them. After this interview, I'd be really sweating bullets and start kind of reconsidering my, strategic, directive and path that I take with this company, and basically, go and start trying to realize or start trying to, think about what would be the best path, the best direction to go down in the future to, convince Zaslav and Finch and others to keep us on TBS and TNT and not put us on True TV. But if they want wrestling on True TV, find a way along with that to convince them to put Ring of Honor on there, and maybe by presenting it to be a developmental brand, kind of start showing, hey, I'm a fan, but I'm a boss first. I'm the owner first. I'm the boss first. I'm the Law and Order. I'm the one that when the buck stops, it stops with me. That he needs to start doing that, because this interview, if it hasn't already, it's going to get to Zaslav. It's going to get to Finch. It's going to get to those in charge. And, it's probably going to, result. I'm not saying it will, but it'll probably result in them getting a deal, but not the deal they're looking for. So if I'm Tony Khan, I start praying. I start getting on my hands and knees. I start praying to the Lord above. And I start getting, going to those that I center myself around with. And I start seeking their advice of where to go, what path to take, what directive to take, how to change up my strategy, my directive, and all that. And also, if I want to still get Ring of Honor on a platform outside of Honor Club, how do I do that along with this? And again, I think being truthful, saying something like, hey, the reason I said I fired CM Punk instead of saying he quit is because I was saving face with the roster. And then along the line say, look, I'm showing that I've matured. I made these budget cuts and da-da-da. And then maybe along with that say, look, I want to focus on the future of this company. I want this company to succeed. For you, for the fans, for you, but I need a platform for the brand known as Ring of Honor that's going to provide, people the chance to see what that future will look like. And by presenting Ring of Honor that way, by saying basically it's going to be our NXT, that might help too. But yeah, if I'm Tony Khan, I look at this interview CM Punk did, and I'm like, okay, time to start, changing up my strategy, changing up my strategic directive and path, start acting more like a boss, and, stand up for what, and basically show that I can be a boss, I can be a true businessman, I can make the best deals and negotiations that could help us all out. And in the process, he might not only be able to keep his shows on TBS and TNT with the deal he wants, but along the way he might even be able to get Ring of Honor onto something like True TV, but by presenting it as a developmental brand. But again, it's up to him. It's not up to me. It's not up to Marvin the Movie Monster on Tooneytown Wrestling. It's not up to JD from Off the Script, or Alex from Just Alex's World, or Solomon or anybody else. It's not even up to CM Punk or even Ariel Helwani. It's up to him. It's not even up to his roster. It's not even up to those from the roster that he's put in charge in certain positions. It's up to him. He could seek advice. Of where to go, as his next directive, his next path, to get that deal. But if he doesn't, then if I'm him, I'm looking at my watch and being like, okay, how much longer are we going to stay on TBS and TNT? He's got to start thinking that. And and here's the thing, they are showing a lot of improvement. They're showing that they can book semi-small, semi-big, if not medium-sized to smaller, arenas and venues than what they've done before. I mean, you take a look where Dynasty is going to be, the venue it's going to be at in St. Louis, and that's not even the venue like, let's say, the NHL team, St. Louis Blues, plays at. It's smaller. So that's the first, one of the first major steps pay-per-view wise. But outside of that, he's got to start, using that same strategy for, Dynamite and Collision and Rampage and even Ring of Honor until he builds up the trust of the fans, and by extension, maybe even build up the trust of Zaslav again, because again, you can't tell me Zaslav wasn't, pissed when he heard that CM Punk was gone from AEW. He probably was, and he took Tony's word at face value, but maybe not anymore. And the only way Tony's going to win that trust back, especially after this interview that Punk did, is to start showing he is a boss. He is more boss than fan now, and that he's going to take advice from those that have worked in entertainment and in sports and in other venues, as well as those that have experience, competing on competing in the ring or still currently in the ring. So to me, he's gonna have to really take a lot of stuff into consideration, because if he wants that deal, to stay on TBS, stay on TNT, get a max deal, and try to get Ring of Honor, more viewership, if you will, outside of Honor Club. Yeah, he's gonna have to start really waking up and basically, acting more mature than what he is right now. Because again, everything that Punk said here does not paint him in a good light, and it doesn't paint him in a good light, especially in the eyes of someone like Zaslav and Finch, who basically hold the broadcasting future of AEW in their hands, if you know what I mean. But let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think CM Punk's interview with Ariel Helwani, and when he talked about a lot of the AEW stuff, is going to affect the TV deal? Or do you think they'll be fine? And do you think maybe if Tony Khan hears this, and I'm sure he has, that he's going to basically realize, okay, maybe I need to, go down a different path and be more of a boss, be more in tune with what's going on, instead of being what I want and what the IWC wants, and stuff like that. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as on the live chat during the premiere, and I'll talk to y'all later.